Well, welcome everybody to our surprise Tuesday live because we have an interview show scheduled today. And I thought it would be really fun to do this one live and get any of your questions that you have just going in. And my guest today is, and this is terrible. I don't know how to say your first name.
Lana,
Is
like
it
Anna.
Lana or
Yeah,
Lena? I was like, I need to
it's
find that out before we go live. And then I didn't. I literally said that
everyone.
on my show Monday.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone gets it wrong. It's all good. It's Lana like Anna.
Lana like Anna. I have a cousin named Lena.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. So it might be hard for you to remember
now
that.
I got it. Lana like Anna. That's a mnemonic device. Anyway, so I've got Lana Stenner here who put in a guest form to talk about planning for an absence on a busy farm, which is something I know a lot of y'all struggle with who listen to the podcast. And I was like, yes, that's the best topic ever because every time I have to leave, like somebody's gonna die or
Yep.
somebody's gonna get out or something's gonna get eaten that I don't want eaten by the goats. And I thought, okay, this is something I know I'm gonna learn from this. So let's start out with who is Lana Stenner and how did you go from, I don't know, thinking about farming to what you're doing, like where you're at today, talking to us
Yes.
on this podcast.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. What an honor to be here today. Yeah. So my name is Lana Stenner, and we have been here on our small homestead for about 4 years. I'm sorry, 4 acres is what it is. We've been here for about 20 years, and before that, me and my husband, we were living life in the fast lane, corporate America, driving an hour in traffic, just 12-hour days, absolutely miserable, to be honest with you. And he worked for the airlines, and it was just a very intense situation. And we just yearned to, make a move and get out of the city. And we just took some steps and slowly, very slowly, we just transitioned to kind of the simple life and homestead living. And we have a very small property here with goats and chickens and lots of gardens. And we raised our 4 babies up in this property. And, now only one of them is still left at home, and they're starting to move out. And we're just having a great time. And so I really, encourage anyone that's interested in that not to, just push it back because they don't have the property, because you don't need a whole lot. Most of what we do right here, you could do in your backyard in a neighborhood. So it's the good life over here.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was in Portland, Oregon, I lived in Portland, Oregon for a while. Out of college, I was in a suburban home that I shared with some friends just because that's what you do, right? It's less expensive than renting a whole house yourself. And there was an apple tree and all sorts of stuff just in that backyard that was a lot of food production. And it's amazing how much you can do with small spaces. I almost think it's better to have a small space because it keeps you a little bit more disciplined about what you're doing as opposed to just spreading out on the homestead and then hating your life when you're running like back and forth all day long.
You are so right. Oh my goodness. Yes. So many times. I mean, pretty much our gardens, what we do here, you could probably fit in a fourth of an acre, maybe a half at the most. And so, yes, I agree. The smaller sometimes the better, because it forces you to be organized and do some planning, and you're very intentional. Where, some of my friends that have 100 acres, it's kind of a mishmash of this and that. And it's a lot more work. And we can be just as productive in a very small space. So, yeah, I think you're totally right.
Was there a moment in your city life where you just said, that's it? Like, what was that like?
Yes, there was actually several of them, but it's just that nothing is more irritating than sitting in traffic. And I'm dating myself here. I'm over 50. So this was back, before there were cell phones or anything that you could even do. You're just sitting there listening, to your car radio, and you just want to get to where you want to be. And, there was just a day where my husband was kind of more of the outdoorsman and really was always talking about this and pushing it. And I was kind of like, oh, corporate America and I want to live in the city and all that type of thing. And then just, the grind just gets to you. And again, we had an exit strategy and it took probably a good 2 years to really make it, and the moment where it really changed was after I had my first child. And we just knew, I don't want someone else raising my kiddo. And by the time I get home, I'm tired, I'm wiped out, I'm stressed. I had it's a very stressful job and this is just not the life I want. And it was tough. We had to really scale back our spending big time. I mean, it ended up, my husband switched jobs and he became a fireman. And so, by the time we moved here 20 years ago, we had 4 little kids. I was a stay-at-home mom and we were on a fireman's salary. And we had bought this house that, probably should have been bulldozed. And we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to garden. We didn't know how to woodwork. We didn't know how to build a thing. And and YouTube didn't even exist at that point, or we didn't know about it at that point. And so it was really a lot of trial by error and a lot of reclaimed lumber and supplies that, people were dumping off of our friends and family were just giving us their old junk. And so we made it happen. And you just have to be patient and be okay with things not being perfect and, just embracing those imperfections and the gouges in the wood and, all that mismatched materials or whatever. And you end up, with a great greenhouse or great garden boxes. As long as you just, you're okay with just trying it. And then it's extra special because you built it with your own hands. And so, you don't have to have a lot of money or a lot of space to have this lifestyle. I think that's a big misconception out there.
Was it your intention to homestead when you made the leap from city to country, or did you go to the country and homesteading found you?
A little bit of both. I mean, my main thing was I just wanted to have a simpler lifestyle and be a good mother and be engaged and intentional with my kids. I think my husband was really more into being self-sufficient and growing our own food. And he was talking about tomatoes when we were dating. And I just thought he was such a nerd. And so, I think he was more on the homestead lifestyle. And I was just I just wanted a simpler pace where I could truly, soak up the time with my kids and also pour into them the values. I mean, if I'm gone 12 hours a day and someone else, even if it's my mom or my sister watching my son, they're not going to get my values. They're going to, it's someone else is raising them. And so that was my take. But my husband, how that works. They just start rubbing off on you. And then all of a sudden you're more involved in it than they are. So I caught the homesteading bug.
You caught the bug and then they're like, stop, come back.
And he has said that. Yeah. When we ventured into goats, he was like, okay, I didn't really mean it.
It didn't really
stop.
Goats will do that to you.
Yes, they sure will.
They're more challenging than sheep, and sheep are challenging.
Yes, they are. They sure are.
So what was your first thing you did? Was it gardening? Was it chickens? Was it a combo? How'd you get started?
Yeah. So we started right away with a garden, and we did have a garden in our neighborhood that we came from before, over 20 years ago, but it was pretty small. So we were super excited to expand and have a bigger garden. And so that we started with that, but right off the bat, it was right into chickens, how everybody, the gateway drug of get those chickens. And we didn't mean to. We came home with from the farm feed store with a bunch of baby chicks, and we didn't have a brooder. We didn't have a coop. We were just like, oh, they're so cute. We'll figure it out. And then, the rest was history. It just kept going from there.
I was listening to a show the other day from Jack Spirko of the Survival Podcast, and he was talking about how to raise chickens if you're in a more suburban setting. And he goes into this long explanation about the infrastructure you need in place. And he's like, don't be the person who's at the farm store and comes home with chickens and a heat lamp and like turns, their claws. And I'm like, Okay, yeah, but every homesteader I know basically did that.
That's what we all do. We all do. And then we're cussing at ourselves, a few months later, like, what have I gotten myself
I
into?
always
But
call
it's
that building the car while you're driving it.
yes, absolutely. But you know what? That is the best way to do it. I mean, I have friends right now that have been talking to me about chickens, have had courses, you subscribe to YouTube channels, they have books on raising chickens, and it's years later. And I'm like, you don't need any more book knowledge. Just go get some and you'll figure it out. And so I think although it sounds silly just to jump in and dive in like that, I think that's how you learn. And as long as you keep them alive and get your research done pretty quick, that first 24 hours you get them home, it's all good. It's all good. And then you end up with ducks and turkeys and geese and all the other
Yeah,
nonsense
this
too.
is the funniest comment I've seen so far from Tori. I was such a noob that I couldn't tell I had a goose and not a duck.
Yep. I
Speaking
can
of geese.
I can relate to that. I can totally relate to that. And it's funny how you jump in. Like, I was such a chicken lady, and now I love ducks. I love
Yeah.
duck eggs. I mean, I want to eat duck eggs all the time. And I found out that many people that have allergies to eggs, chicken eggs, are fine eating duck eggs. And so I just think they're kind of underrated. People should really look into the ducks because they have some sassy personalities for sure.
I love the ducks because they're more trainable than chickens. So
Hmm.
mine are trained to go to bed on a call, and they tear up my yard less. They do
They
poop
do.
everywhere more, but they tear
Yes.
up the yard less, and I free range. I just free range. I don't have a lot of anti-duck defense systems in, and it is
Yeah.
what it is. I have like a gate around my garden space, and then everything else is
Hmm.
taller than ducks, or it's on the ground and they eat it if they want to. So
Yes. Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
really fun because they like wag their little tails when they see you, and
Oh, yeah. They
they
talk
always
to
like
you.
they talk to each other. It's like they're complaining about. They're like, "He's over here," blah, blah, blah. And it's like nothing funnier than that. Okay,
Yeah,
so
they are.
20 years ago, you had a rural place and you kind of started doing this homesteading thing. What's it like
Mhm.
now?
Yeah. It's not that much different than it was. I mean, we have a lot more animals and chores, of course, and responsibilities. The house, we put on a little addition, and we did that ourselves. My husband, he's pretty handy. He learned the hard way and is now pretty handy. I wouldn't say he always was, but and so house wise, it's pretty much the same. The good thing about the house, although it looked like it needed to be bulldozed when we bought it pretty much had some good bones. I mean, it had a newer roof and that. So we had to do a lot of septic and all basement
Mhm.
work and that type of thing. But the bones and the windows and the roof line were pretty good. As for the outside spaces, our barn pretty much is the same. We've sectioned off some certain pens for different animals, or if the mamas are having newborn baby goats or whatever, we have a place we call the nursery for them. Lot more fencing since then that we've had to put in, and we've established the gardens. But for the most part, if you drove by on the street, it wouldn't look that much different than it did 20 years ago. So
Well, that's not. Does it look way different inside your house?
yes, yeah, we totally gutted the kitchen. And and it was funny because we moved these all six of us in, and the house is pretty tiny. Like, we didn't have a master bedroom at that point, and we had to bunk the boys. I have three boys and a girl, and we had to bunk the boys in a bunk room. And our master bedroom was the den, and we used the bathroom off of the kitchen. We didn't have a master bath. So but it's one of those where if your heart's in it and it's what you want, all those little inconveniences kind of go away. And you're just so excited with four kiddos, and boys are ornery and they're running around. So it was just so nice to move out. And again, we have a very small property. It's only 4 acres, but it gave them a little bit more room to run around and get their energy out without bugging neighbors. And it's just a good lifestyle for kiddos to spend time outside. And I think sometimes when, you're in a neighborhood or you're in an apartment, and we've been there, we've done that. It's harder. You have to make yourself go outside. Where now we have out in the garden, we have a dining room kind of table set up. It's kind of janky, but we eat a lot of times outside, and we spend a lot of our time outside. And it's just it just grounds you, I think, and forces you to turn off your technology, get away from your screens, and spend time with your family for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. So where I am, there were a lot more cabins on the road I am 100 years ago.
Okay.
Because they were building a dam here for the Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
I think that's why. And the cabins are still there in the woods. They're falling down, and they're basically just one-room cabins. Whole families lived in those cabins
Yeah.
their whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Like 6, 8, 12 people, one-room cabin. And that is something that I think is really, it's interesting, because when you ask people how did it work living in a one-room cabin like that, they were like, well, we weren't in the cabin unless we had to be in the cabin.
Right. You're
We were
outside. Yes.
outside, and mom would be like, get out and don't come back till dark, and all of
Right.
those things. So
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
it,
And they were probably much more happier back then,
yeah,
They, they weren't comparing and on all the social media apps all the time.
yeah. Okay, but you came on to talk about preparing to be away from a homestead that's busy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I think about that topic, I think, vacation, or
Mhm.
visiting family. But your reason for needing to prepare for this was very different. Why don't you tell us a little bit about
Mhm.
that? What happened to you
Yes.
that made you have to
Yes.
learn how to do this?
Good question. Yes. So about 2 years ago, we're coming right up on 2 years ago, in the fall of 2020. I was having headaches when I was doing our final harvest in the garden. Every time I bent over to, pick up something or do something in the garden, I would just have this, splitting headache, and it just seemed different. And of course, we were in the middle of all the pandemic and all that drama, and I, had just turned 50 at that point. And so I'm just kept blowing it off, thinking, oh, it's hormones, or, oh, it's maybe I have COVID or something, all the
Mhm.
things. Finally, it just got, bad enough. So I went in, they sent me for a scan, and then immediately I knew something was up, because they immediately sent me for a different higher image scan, and was diagnosed that day with a peach-sized brain tumor. Um, and so, of course, your world is rocked at that moment, and they wanted to do surgery right away. They were telling me that there was a part of it that was too risky to take out. So they were going to take part of it, but leave part of it. They were very optimistic that it wasn't cancerous just by the way it looked on the scan, but they wouldn't know until they got in there and did it. So, long story short, we did get a second opinion. It took about a month before I had the surgery. And then I had, another month, maybe 6 weeks of a recovery. And, thank you, Jesus. It was a complete recovery, 100%, no deficits, no cancer. I didn't even have to have treatments. And so in my situation, I was very, very lucky. And, I don't want to get into the faith piece of it, because of course I've turned into a crazy Jesus freak since then.
It's okay to talk about faith here.
Yes. Yeah.
We welcome all perspectives.
Yeah, God is good. And
Yeah.
all I will say, because I try to stay
Yeah.
in my lane and not go there, but all I will say is he is still in the miracle business, because I should not still be here. There's a lot of complications, a lot of story of during the surgery. Basically, 4.5 hour surgery. After they tell my husband, I'm bleeding profusely, I'm going to be paralyzed, I need a blood transfusion, all this drama. Basically, I wake up and I'm totally fine. Walking, talking within 2 hours,
Oh,
no
good.
problems. God's good. So, that aside, we pretty much had about a 2-month time frame where I was completely out of commission. And it isn't anything we had ever prepared for on just on the farm here. And even though our farm is small, it's, as you know, there are hours worth of chores every single day.
Yep.
And we had been on, a 4 or 5 day vacation here or there. And that was, trouble enough trying to get everything covered while we left. But, being complete out of commission for a couple of months. And even if you have a spouse on the property, it's double time work. And so during that situation, we did luck out because we had just finished up all of the fall, pulling all the gardens out and, putting the compost back on. And so we were if you had to have it done, November and December and January, those are pretty much the best months to have it. So I would say we were very fortunate with that, but there were still a lot of pieces that I was very thankful that we had put in place when we went just on a 4 or 5 day vacation that allowed us not to stress as much. And of course, there was still a lot of stress during that time frame, but just a few simple things and automation during that really made the difference. And, I would say probably one of the main ones, and it, depending on what growing zone you're in or what area of the country you're in, already plugged in heated water buckets just can cut off. Oh my goodness. That could cut off a good 30 minutes of your day if you're not having to fill the water and drag buckets, across to all of your animals. And that's, more on the animal side than on the gardening side during the winter here, at least. And so I was so thankful that we had automated heated systems for our goats, for our sheep, and for our chickens. And so, that is one of the big things that I would say if you're going to, I'm very frugal. I'm very cheap. I don't, if we can get by with nothing, we're going to do it, the janky way pretty much. But that is one thing that I would say, if anyone is considering that and lives in a colder climate, that's something to splurge on for sure. That's a big helper. And then, outside of that, anything else that you can kind of automate, for our chickens, we have and we have a mixed flock. We have, let me think, my goodness, probably 25 to 30 birds. If I had to count, I would probably say maybe 28 or 29 birds right now. And we do an all flock. So as much as you can simplify on feeding, sometimes, you're not going to be able to combine animals. We do combine our sheep and our goats together as well. And so it all just depends on what you have. Every farm and every homestead's going to be a little bit different, but as much as you can simplify the feeding, simplify what they're eating. If they can eat the same type of hay, if they can eat the same type of feed from the store. And, like our birds, we have a huge barrel out there, and it's, it has different feeding holes that they can get into. There's so many different ways to automate it. And we could go literally probably over a week, 2 weeks without feeding them. Of course, we're out there and hanging out with them and checking on them at a minimum twice a day, but a lot of times we're out there even way more than that. But those are the types of things that, we still, even if we're going on a 4 or 5 day vacation, someone still is going to come and lay their eyes on every single animal every single day, sometimes twice a day, most of the time twice a day, depending on where you're at with your animals. If you have new baby chicks, it's going to be way more than that.
Yep.
That
qualifies as don't leave.
Yeah. And we don't. I mean, they're too high maintenance for that. But it does help if someone's coming in. They're mainly just there to check in case someone's stuck in a fence or if something went wrong with the feeding system or the water. They're mainly there just to check on kind of emergency situations, not necessarily just the basics. And so, I would encourage anyone, and it helps you day to day on the farm too, to, just cut down that time with the chores. And then you can just have more time to play and enjoy your animals and enjoy your property. It's trying to simplify those things. So yes, it was a very, crazy thing. When I think about it now, I'm like, okay, God, what on earth was that all about? And why did I go through that? And, now I have no deficits, no problems. It almost doesn't seem real. It's just so strange when I see those pictures. It's like, how did anyone survive that? When I look at those brain scans now, but I wouldn't trade that time for anything. When I look back on that now, I'm thankful for it. I feel like I had my priorities straight. We had already really simplified our lives and kind of given up the money game, and just spent time with our family, and our priorities were straight. But even when you're patting yourself on the back thinking you have it all together, boy, I didn't, and so it's really nice. Sounds strange to say, but when you have one of those health scares, boy, it puts things in perspective, and you just don't really worry as much about things that don't matter. I mean, your people is what matter, and all the things, all the material things, all the things that we spend our time on. It's really been a shift in my thinking since then. So I'm very grateful for it. And, since that time frame, and my husband, took a lot of the brunt of that, especially with the farm work and all the chores and that type of thing, which was kind of nice because it was in the, when it's 10 below zero, he had to do it all that whole winter, which was kind of great. I got out of it, right? But, it's just, you just don't know when something like that's going to happen. It could be a parent that you have to go travel for, or it could be a kid, or, just anything could happen. And so, I would just encourage people just to take those little steps and truly be prepared, as if you're going on a week-long vacation at any moment. And then it will just take a little bit of that stress off of your mind while you're dealing with, the real stressor of it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it to sit down and write the daily to-do list
Oh,
for
yes.
your farm sitter, even if you don't have a farm sitter coming in, because you will realize all the garbage you do that you do not need to be doing that way when you write it. You look at that and you think, oh man,
Right.
now I know why that takes so much time. And then you can make adjustments. So a friend of mine, John Moody, wrote a book called The Frugal Homesteader. And part of the premise is being frugal with your time. So, if you stage food near the animals you need to feed, that saves you the time of running to go get the food and then running back to the animal. And if you start thinking of the whole thing as a system, it goes a lot better. Like when I do animals here, which I don't usually because Tactical is doing most of that now, there is a starting point and an ending point that I do, and I can get the whole loop done in 15 minutes. With the addition of sheep this year and having sheep in the second property, that's not entirely true. But it's all the animals except for the sheep next door. They have their own challenge. But in order for that to happen, there is time spent other days where there is, feed is being moved places and all sorts of different things. So it's not that it's only 15 minutes every day for the rest of the year. It's just that in a pinch, it can be done in 15 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. That is so smart, because the time piece of it, you do need to be frugal, not just with your money and your resources, but with your time. And, and I love that you said that, bringing other people in too, with having a community. I mean, we're very fortunate because our sons, who have just recently moved out, and, I have 2 married sons now, and the other one lives on 5 acres kind of right across from us. And so they all have their own small farms nearby, and they're kind of our community. And of course we raise them and, sacrifice for them. So they don't have an issue coming back and helping us. But, other friends that I have in other cities, they really build those bonds with others in their community. And so when something goes down, oh, you have these kind of goats, I have those kind of goats, and will you babysit for me? Or you already know the drill on how to deal with this kind of sheep come in and what their needs are and what their personalities are. And so having a community set up for those time frames could help you on a vacation, or it could help you, if something, really serious goes down, but also just having fun with them. And, we have another family here where if we're breeding this kind of goat and they want that kind of goat, we kind of trade. And it's just a beautiful thing to find your people that are like-minded and have some of the same animals or interests or bees, that type of thing, where you can really gain from their knowledge and they can help you out and you can help them out. I love that system in the homesteading community. It's just so valuable.
So when you had to be pretty much out of it for 2 months, was it your husband who took over everything, or was it more the community approach?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, he did a lot of the daily taking care of that kind of thing. But we had people bringing meals in, and just the community really stepped it up. And I would say theirs were, of course, we could have we could have gone through a drive-through and got, you don't really have to have that. It was more of the emotional support came from the community, and, flowers, and just, it is interesting. Our family, just when I was a stay-at-home mom, we did a lot of nonprofit work, and we would help and bring food to someone that had a new baby or something in the church. That was kind of a part of our DNA. And it was very weird for me, being on that needy side of things. I think homesteaders in general, we're all so independent and we don't want to rely on anyone. And I don't need anyone's help. I don't want the government's money. I don't want anything. I can do everything myself. We're so all independent. And so it was, for the first time, really, where we were the ones receiving the goodness instead of being the ones pouring it out. And it's definitely it's very humbling. It's different place, but I think I'm glad that I had that experience, because you feel cared for and loved. And did we need it? No, we could have heated something up in the microwave. My husband's a good cook. He could have barbecued something, whatever. But it just, that emotional support of other people pouring in and bringing things and saying, I will go shovel manure for you in 0-degree weather. Just the offering, whether we took them up on it or not, just really makes, just strengthens those bonds. And so, it was a bit of both. Pretty much everybody pitched in. And then here I was feeling great. So I'm like, I want to, get out there and do this. And I did. I would put my coat on and just go hang out with the goats and, hang out with them. But it was both. It was a lot of my husband and a lot of the community and our family really pouring into us.
So what was the biggest lesson you learned about being ready for an absence on the farm?
Yeah. I would say mainly just planning in advance. You don't want to spend too much of our time, just like we would anything else, prepping for whatever it is, or food storage, or any of the things that those of us that want to be self-sufficient do. You don't want to pour all your resources and every thought that you have be into that, but you do want to have some kind of plan in place for a contingency when things go south, because they will, they do. And whether it's some big health scare, or whether it's a vacation, or whatever it may be, just having something in place already, and just spending a little bit of time thinking through, what are 5 things that I can do on my place right now that can automate things or simplify it. Or maybe I move the hay storage a little closer to where it's used, so we don't have to go through 5 gates to get there. Just what are some little tweaks during the time off? Maybe it's off season, maybe it's winter and you don't have to do a lot but take care of the animals, and the gardens are kind of resting. Maybe you spend that extra time really preparing for that next following season. How can I be a little more efficient? And being efficient helps you when you're in some big drama or you need to be away from your farm, but it also helps you while you're there have more time to what you were just saying, being frugal with your time. You have more time to just sit and enjoy your sheep or your goats, or, make a egg breakfast outside over a fire pit, where normally you're like, that's going to take an extra 15 minutes and my cast iron skillet's too heavy and I got to carry it all the way back there and all that kind of stuff. You really have more time to do those things that just make your life extra special. And so I would say just plan and think through how you can automate. I mean, like I said, my top automation is automated water, heated water, a chicken coop door. We like to free range, but we have crazy coyotes, and even our possums are just evil around here. They like to eat the heads off our chickens. Oh my goodness. So we try to bring them in at night, and we had an automated door. It ended up breaking, and for about a year we didn't have one, and sure enough, 18 of our birds got wiped out in a matter of 1 week with predators. So just thinking through, how can I automate? And a lot of people aren't in a place that have a lot of predators. Ours are crazy around here. So just what are some of those systems that you can put in place in advance, or maybe it's fencing, whatever those types of things are, so that all your time isn't wasted and you just lost your whole flock. So I would just think through, in every single farm, every location and area in the country are going to have some different types of issues and weather. And, you may not need a heated bucket where you're at, or those or a certain kind of fencing. You might be great to free range and you never have a predator sneak one of yours off. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, but I would just say, what are a few of the things that I can put in place right now that a year from now I'll be thanking myself for?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that mindset, I was going to ask you this question, but you kind of answered it. That mindset is something you can carry forward. If you are a homesteader right now and you feel super overwhelmed, which most homesteaders do.
Yes.
Starting to think, what little things can I do that simplify or make this process easier, making a list and then just doing one at a time is a huge help as you develop your homestead. Because if you don't take that time, you're going to be even more overwhelmed in 5 years, because you'll just keep adding stuff without having your process in place. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is so true. And something I would add too is, in my situation with the brain tumor, I got really lucky. By the time, so we have a whole setup in our basement with lights and grow lights and all the things where we do a lot of our seeds. And we were fully prepared to just scratch it all. Like, that is the least of our concerns. If I come out of this and I have cancer, or I need treatments, or I'm out of commission completely, there was going to be a spring where we didn't start our seeds inside, and we just roll with it. And if you have a season like that, or maybe your parents, you have to really work and help them, and you're driving them to doctor's visits or whatever, give yourself grace. And it's okay to not plant kale that year. If, if that's going to bring you stress, you can go to the grocery store and buy it. I mean, or a friend can bring it to you or whatever. I mean, just do what you can. And we're so self-sufficient and independent, and we don't want to live off of anyone else's hard work, and we want to do it all ourselves. But if you're in those situations, it's okay to just give something up for a season and come back to it. And, one other quick tip I would say is, as many things that you can put in place that are the perennial type, like fruit trees or berry bushes, those, had I been out of commission and not put one thing in the ground, we would still have a lot of things going on here. We have grapevines, we have apple trees and peach trees and all of those kind of things that you can have without doing a lot of work too. So that's another really good tip too. If you can put some of those things in place that you don't have to do any work for, those are some really good use of your time and money right now for sure.
Yeah, you say that. I have 25 trees sitting right outside that are going in this year because
Oh, good for
this
you.
weekend we're doing a food forest installation workshop here.
Oh,
I've been
fun.
here 15 years. It's taken me this long to figure out where it would go
Yeah, yeah.
because of this property. I have some other fruit trees here, but that's all going in finally. And I will finally, I mean, I have always had the wild perennials here and some others, but I'm kind of excited by that because we're going to
Mhm.
interplant with fodder trees for the livestock
Oh,
and just
nice.
bump up production. Yesterday, a friend called. I only had 10 trees, and I'm part of the class I'm giving is how to do something like a food forest install when you
Mhm.
don't have thousands of dollars to put in on seeds and
Right,
trees. And
right.
so I spent about $350 on plants and trees, and that's my budget. And then a friend called, and Lowe's was having that closeout thing that Lowe's does.
Mhm.
So I ended up with 15 more trees for.
Ah,
I
awesome.
was like,
That's as good as it gets. I
but we're going
love
to
that.
talk about like plant propagation and how you can start with, a small amount of plants, put your food forest in and have plans for interplanting over the next couple years while you take cuttings and starts
Mhm.
and separate bulbs and that sort of thing. So
Yes,
it doesn't
that's
always
the
have to be,
way.
like thousands of dollars up front in plants. You can actually do it a little bit more frugally if you want to.
That is so, so smart. We were just yesterday, we were cutting back our blackberry bushes
Yeah.
and I saved 20 of the little stems and they're in a little glass dish. We're propagating them
Yeah.
for my son. And so that is just the way to do it because it's basically free. I mean, it takes a little bit of your time. But
Yeah.
boy, that's so smart to plan out. And a lot of these things, you can double the number of plants you have in 1 year.
Yeah, blackberries, raspberries, anything like that, super easy to propagate,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, "I'll buy one."
Mhm. Right, right.
I'll buy
Yeah.
one and take 2 years. I got it. I got it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm super cheap. We went through Home Depot this past weekend. I'm like, he was gonna go pick some wood or something
Yeah.
up, and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'll go because their plants are on clearance." I walk through, I'm like, "Well, they're on clearance, but they're not cheap enough, so I'm
Yeah.
not buying any."
Well, you can always do that thing, "What if I take them all? What kinda deal will you make me to get these
Yeah,
all out of here?" And then you end up with plants you don't want, but
right.
you get a really good deal, and what you're
Yes.
doing is you're turning their plants into compost.
Right,
That's
there you go.
that's
There
the
you
that's
go.
the trick,
I
if you
love
have
it.
time. Sometimes you
Yes.
don't have time for that, but
Right.
that is the thing about time. Okay, well, we've made it through the whole interview without you talking about any of the books you wrote. How did that happen?
Oh. Well, this is more fun to talk about.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Yeah, well, we just came out with our book October 4th. It's called The
Woohoo.
Grace-Filled Homestead, and
Yeah.
it's lessons I've learned on faith, family, and the farm. And it's a little bit about, what all we just talked about. It's kind of our background of our family moving to this property 20 years ago. And we talk about goats and chickens. We have a lot of really simple, cheap DIYs, like turning over a bookshelf and that's a raised garden bed. And just a lot of really simple how we built a greenhouse out of complete scrap lumber and old windows and recipes and stories about our ornery little naughty animals getting out of the fences and
I always
all
do.
they always do. It doesn't matter how good a fence you have. They will find a way to get in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the book is, for sale anywhere you buy books. I'm kind of, I'm new at this. So I had no idea the process for writing a book and the whole publishing scene. And so I didn't realize it's been about a 2-year process. So, and I'm just impatient, like, can we just get this out? What are we doing? And so it finally came out and we've been on the Amazon #1 new release list for a couple of weeks, which is crazy. Because most people don't know who I am, or it's kind of an odd mishmash of a book with all these wonderful things in it. But I was kind of wondering, okay, it's not really a cookbook. It's not really a homesteading book. It's kind of all these different things together. But we're getting a lot of good feedback for it. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of goat pictures in there. So I think that's why it's doing so well. It's got goats on the cover and goats all over inside. And so how can you go wrong with baby goats, right?
Yeah. Are they keeping you busy speaking about the book, or are you?
We're just starting with that. Tonight is our first event that I'm going to. That's why my hair is brushed and washed, and I'm not in a ball cap right now. I guess I have to shower if I have to go out off the property, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, tonight is our first one. We have about, I think, 8 or 9 events coming up over the next, and most of them are right here local in Missouri. I have some of the dates up on my website if anyone's here listening from Missouri. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, most of them are small stores, and I the stores that I go to, and I love the people, and so I'm kind of excited. It's kind of a weird, surreal type of thing. I have trouble calling it a book signing. I'm like, we'll just go chat. That's weird. so yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm excited about tonight. So.
It's the best way for people to find that out about your schedule, lanastenner.com.
Yes, yeah, on the
Yeah.
website.
Lana Stenner, like Anna. My goodness.
Yes, you're good. It's good. I always say you can call me whatever, just don't call me late for dinner. So yeah, lanastenner.com. On social media, my main thing is Instagram at Lana Stenner, and then heaven forbid, I'm on TikTok all of a sudden, and so Lana Stenner and Goat Gang. If you like goat videos, I could sit there. I have this love hate with TikTok, but I like watching all the animal videos on there, so it's not all bad.
Yeah, the thing about TikTok is if I look at it, half an hour has gone by and I've been looking at a bunch of BS. And I have to be really careful when I open it, and then I'm supposed to be posting content there. I'm like, but then I open it.
Yes.
So it's a discipline issue for me.
You have to like set a timer. Like, I'm not wasting all night watching goat videos.
Yes. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we have a comment here from Josie. It says, this was just the inspiration I needed today. So uplifting and fun. Thanks.
Oh, yay. Oh, I'm glad.
Awesome.
And that's, I love that, because so many people think that the homesteading lifestyle is so far out of reach. And that is one of the things I really homed in on the book is, if you're in an apartment downtown and all you have is a little, patio door onto a tiny little 4x4 deck, you can have a container salsa garden out there. You can be intentional with your family. Even if you're single and don't even have a partner that you live with, if you can get together with your friends and make homegrown food from food that you buy at the farmer's market, or drive into a farm and get some honey from them. And so there's so many of these things that it doesn't matter if you live on a farm or not, that you can put in place and just have that intentional, slow living lifestyle, no matter where you're at, neighborhood, apartment, condo, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And starting those skills, no matter where you are, gives you those skills if you end up getting more land.
Yes, absolutely.
And people are like, what can I do now? I'm like, well, start learning how to can stuff or make stuff from scratch or grow herbs on your windowsill. I don't care. Do something.
Yes, absolutely. And make that a goal. If that's what your goal is to move out onto some property, or move out even into a neighborhood and have 1/4 of an acre of a garden, just, take baby steps and be patient. I mean, it took us forever to get there. And, I feel like we're still here, but we have a list a mile long of other things that we want to add. And so, just take baby steps. It's all good. It's all attainable from right where you're at. You don't have to have land to have this lifestyle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. And guys, check out her book, Faith, Family, and the Farm, and learn about her signing tours at lanastenner.com. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You're right. It's going to be a very hard habit to break. lanastenner.com. Anyway, Lana, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.